What's up YouTube, I'm Guy, and today on the channel we are checking out a trio of micro brand dive watches. The brands that we're talking about here today are number one from, well, I'll rate them in least expensive to most expensive. So number one, a watch from the brand Neymar. Number two, a watch from the company Borealis. And finally, a watch from the company Ocean Crawler. Now, the Ocean Crawler is most certainly a micro brand watch. I believe that watch is limited to something like 75 pieces, so most certainly it's a micro brand. Are the other two technically considered micro brand watches? I might be being a little fast and loose with that term, and I'm not entirely certain if they would appreciate being called a micro brand, but for sure, they're lesser known companies. They're probably a little undiscovered in the watch community, so I apologize if they don't want to be referred to as micro brand watches, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to call these watches all micro brand watches. These reviews of each individual watch are not going to be the feature length, fully in-depth reviews that I typically do, just because I haven't had the watches for a long time, and I just want to give you a look at some watches that maybe you're not familiar with yet. I do have to give a big thank you to the people that got these watches in my hand. In the case of the Borealis and the Ocean Crawler, a big thanks to Random Rob. If you guys don't know Random Rob's channel, he's another reviewer here on YouTube, and he's the one that got these watches over to me. So thanks, Rob, and please go check out his channel. I'll put a link down in the description. And yeah, you guys should definitely subscribe to the Random Rob Watch channel. If you're a subscriber of mine, I think you'll like what he's doing over there. In the case of the Neymar watch, that was supplied to me by the company. They reached out to me and asked if I'd like to review one of their watches. Now, I don't generally accept watches from a manufacturer for review unless it's something that I would otherwise be interested in. I've had a lot of offers to review different things, and I've politely declined and turned them down. But I thought that this one was interesting because it's kind of a Rolex Deep Sea Sea Dweller homage watch. And I just haven't seen a lot of those. I've seen a lot of Submariner homage watches. I've reviewed a couple, as a matter of fact. I like homage watches, if I'm being honest. And I like looking at them. I like comparing them to my Submariner. So I said, wow, this is, you know, kind of like that, but it's a little different in that it's homaging the Deep Sea Sea Dweller. So I said, yeah, I'd like to check that out. I'd like to do a review on it and show it to, you know, the guys that watch my my videos. So that's how I got that one. They were kind enough to send it over to me for review. So thank you to them as well. And again, big thanks to Rob over at the Random Rob channel. Please do go check out his channel after you watch this video and give him a little support and thanks for hooking me up with these two watches. Alright, so we will jump over to the tabletop view, and I will show you each of these watches, not in great depth and detail, just give you a little bit of a presentation of each of those watches, introduce you to the brands that you may not be familiar with. We'll start out with the least expensive, the Neymar, then we will look at the Borealis, and then finally the most expensive, the Ocean Crawler. After we're done with that, I'll pop back over here with some closing thoughts, and yeah, we'll wrap up this review. So stick with me for a little bit, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. Alright guys, here we have the three micro brand dive watches side by side that we're going to be taking a look at today. We are going to look at them in order of escalating price, so from left to right, the most affordable up to the most expensive. We'll take a close look at the Neymar. Then we will check out the Borealis, and finally we will take a close look at the Ocean Crawler. We'll go ahead and zoom in and take a look at that Neymar now, and move through these watches. Alright guys, the first of the three micro brand dive watches that I wanted to bring to the table is the least expensive of the three options here. This is the Neymar 1000 meter diver. MSRP, or suggested retail price from the manufacturer on this watch, is $369. However, I find them on Amazon.com for about $220 or just below that. So very, very competitively priced, especially when we consider all of the features that are packed into this watch. This is, of course, a Chinese manufactured watch, which may or may not appeal to some people. I will say that I've only reviewed one other completely manufactured in China watch, and I was relatively impressed with that watch. And to be honest, I'm pretty impressed with this watch too, particularly, again, when we look at the price versus the features and options that you're getting with this watch. First things first, though, what I want to cover are the basic specifications. This watch is a big, bulky watch, and if we look at it here, it's apparent that this is an homage of the Rolex Deep Sea Sea Dweller. As plain as day, we can tell that that is what this watch is modeled after, basically. Now, dimensions on this guy: 44 millimeters in case diameter, 22 millimeter lugs, 16 millimeters in thickness, with an overall lug-to-lug width of 52 millimeters. Also a very heavy watch. It's big and it is heavy. 250 grams, or about 8 ounces. Just like, the watch that it is homaging, the Rolex Deep Sea Sea Dweller, it's a big, bulky watch. If you're a big-wristed guy, this might be a decent option for you. Now, the things that impress me about this watch, the features that it comes with, which are not standard on watches at this price point, include a pretty nice domed sapphire crystal, and I'll get in here nice and close and give you a look at that. And it does have an AR coating, so as you can see as I pan over towards my studio lighting, instead of completely washing out the dial and making it illegible, I mean, of course we're getting glare. I'm in a very bright room, but through that AR coating, we're still getting very, very good legibility. Another really impressive upgrade that you're going to find on this watch that you're not going to see on watches at this price point: the Bezel Insert is a black ceramic bezel. It's a 120 click unidirectional bezel with a fully loomed set of graduations or markers on the bezel. You're just, again, not going to see that at watches at this price point typically, and I'm impressed by that. As well as being a fully loomed bezel, of course, the dial, markers, and handset are loomed as well. The loom that they say they're using is what they're calling a blue BGW9 luminescent paint or material. I'm not too familiar with all of the different types and brands of loom on the market, but if you're interested, that is what you're getting on this watch. I'll roll in a quick video of the loom in action. It is pleasant looking in that blue coloration, but not nearly as bright or long lasting as you might hope for, especially when you're comparing it to other similarly priced watches from, say, Seiko, for example. But it's not awful. This watch is 100 meter water resist, as the name would suggest, and it does have on the side of the case a helium escape valve. Now, I haven't obviously taken this watch to a full 100 meter depth to test the validity of that claim, but that is what it's advertised at. And with the helium escape valve, the big thick sapphire crystal, screw down case back, maybe it is 1,000 meter water resist. The truth of the matter is none of us are ever going to test it to those depths, and we're never going to find out for sure. But that is, again, what it's advertised at. This watch uses a good movement. It's Seiko, non-Seiko branded is what I should call it, NH35 movement. That's the same thing as the Seiko 4R35. The difference between the 4R35 and 36 is day and date versus just the date. So 35, NH35 in this case, just has the date complication over at 3 o'clock position. Obviously, we have a screw-down crown, and I think I mentioned screw-down case back. You would, of course, expect that at a dive watch, even at this price point, obviously. And we have a nice, fairly decent stainless steel bracelet. It does have polished center links. That's going to be potentially a pro or a con for you. It depends on, what you like stylistically. I kind of like polished center links on bracelets, so it's not a negative for me, but I know there's plenty of guys out there that prefer a fully brushed bracelet. So yeah, it is what it is. Overall, yeah, I'm really impressed with this watch. I think that, is it the highest quality? Is the finish the best? Is the movement the best? Okay, no, it's not, but it's at this price point, $220, you're getting a whole lot of bang for your buck. And when we talk about these watches in this review, I'm going to touch on the good and the bad. Again, it's very nice bezel, great ceramic insert, fully loomed, although the loom is, it's okay, it's not outstanding. That we get those features on a watch at this price point is great. Again, I feel like this is a really good watch when we talk about it in terms of bang per buck. Now, things that I dislike about this watch. Well, as you can see, the rehaut, or just outside of the chapter ring, that flanged area, the wall around the dial. It has this printing on here, and if we get in nice and close, we can see it says helium escape valve, and then down at the very bottom side, 547 fathoms. Obviously, we look at the dial in general, it is a Rolex Deep Sea Sea Dweller homage. It's got the Rolex Mercedes handset, it's got the same style markers, I mean, the whole shtick. And that Rolex does have that helium escape valve. It says something different, gas ring lock. There's like this inscription around the outer edge of the dial on the Rolex. They're kind of, copying that. I wish they didn't do that. I don't like it on the Rolex, and I just honestly don't really like it here either. That it's just printed, it looks like, on the rehaut inside there. I think that does take away from the otherwise good aesthetics of this watch. And if I had my way, I would ask, don't put that on there. Other than that, are there any other bad things about this watch? I mean, it's a big, heavy watch. That would be bad for me. It's a little too big, it's a little too heavy, but that is completely subjective to the user. You may find it to be not a problem at all, and in fact, you might find it to be desirable. But for my personal taste, it is a bit big, it's a bit thick, it's a bit heavy. The bracelet, while I think that it is decent, and it does have solid end links, as you can see here, which is, again, great for a watch at this price point. The downside of the bracelet is the clasp, branded with the Neymar logo there. It is a dual button deployment clasp, that's nice, but the clasp itself, it's kind of a very thin material, and the real problem for me is it only has 2 micro adjustment holes. I wish Neymar would make a little bit of a bigger clasp with a minimum of 3, preferably 4 micro adjustments. Other than that though, I mean, decent quality swing arm, the links all seem solid, it's overall a good bracelet. I just think that the clasp is a little bit of a letdown on this watch. So yeah, that is the Neymar 1000 meter diver at just north of $200 at retail. It's an impressive option. I'm surprised that I like it as much as I do, notwithstanding the issues with the size. I think it's something that I'm glad I was able to bring to the review table and show you guys. The second watch that I want to take a look at in our 3-watch collection of micro brand dive watches is the Borealis Portus Cale. Now, price point on this watch is $320, but the way that they're selling it is a little weird. First of all, this is a prototype watch. It is not a final production watch, so keep that in mind. If you see any little inconsistencies on it, that's probably the explanation there. But overall, quality and fit and finish and everything is actually pretty good, even for a pre-production or prototype version. So yeah, $320. We're going to talk more about that though towards the end of this presentation on this watch. First things first though, the overall dimensions. We have a 42 millimeter case diameter on a 22 millimeter lug bracelet. Thickness of just over 12 millimeters, which is actually pretty impressive. It's a little thinner than your typical dive watch, with a lug-to-lug width from one extremity to the other, or the watch's wingspan, as I like to call it, of 48 millimeters. So overall, it's a really good size for a dive watch. This watch does have a sapphire crystal. It is a flat sapphire crystal, and it does have AR coating on the underside of the crystal, which is nice. We have a 120 click unidirectional bezel, but as you can see, it's a one-piece PVD coated. I don't know if it's stainless steel or aluminum, exactly what it's made out of. I think it's stainless steel, same as the case. But yeah, normally we have an insert in the bezel. That's not the case here. We have a one-piece bezel, PVD black coated, and yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's kind of cool actually. It looks good, Functionally, I like it, so, you know, that's what it is. Now, the nice thing about this bezel, similarly to the previously looked at Neymar, it is a fully loomed bezel. Of course, the dial and handset is loomed as well, and it uses a C3X1 loom. Now, I'm going to bring in some video of this loom. This loom is impressive. Very much as impressive as any Seiko watch that I've ever had. And of the 3 micro brand watches that we're reviewing here today, this one is by far the best when it comes to the loom on the dial and, in this case, also the bezel. Very, very nicely done. The watch runs a Miyota 9015 automatic movement. First watch I've ever seen with a Miyota, actually, surprisingly enough. I'm not too familiar with them, but this particular Miyota 9015 automatic movement has a beat rate of 28,800 vibrations per hour and a roughly 42-hour power reserve. Of course, as you would expect with all dive watches, we have a screw-down crown. This crown is positioned very similarly to a lot of Seiko watches, down at the roughly 4 o'clock position. And we also have a screw-down case back. The case back still has the sticker on it, but if I can get in there, I'll give you a little look at the inscriptions and the design on the back. It's got this weird little, I don't know, flying fellow carrying maybe a turtle on his shoulder over the water. It's interesting. I've never seen anything quite like that as far as the design is concerned. But that's their motif, and yeah, that's what you get on this guy. Let's go down my list here of notes. What else do we got? We have 300 meter water resist, which as you can see on the dial there, below the Portus Cale inscription on the 6 o'clock side, 30 atmosphere. So 300 meter water resist, a stainless steel, completely brushed bracelet, and of course, solid end links, which is, you know, a nice touch. The watch does come, this is an interesting variation or difference from the other watches that we're talking about, and a lot of watches on the market for that matter, particularly at this price point of well below $500. This watch comes with either a date or a no date version, so you can pick. Do you like having a date, or would you rather have the more clean, symmetrical no date version? You have that option with this watch, which is a really cool, I hesitate to call it a feature because it's not really a feature of the watch, but you know, it's a cool addition to their catalog, I guess is what I would say. Me personally, on this watch, while I do like having a date complication in general, I might go with the no date version. I think it might look really cool. You know, with this black solid bezel, very, very nice black dial. Just, you know, erase that date and have a marker there over at the 3 o'clock side to mirror the 9 o'clock side marker. That would be cool. Now, I did mention that there might be a few little inconsistencies because this watch is a pre-production prototype, you know, sent out for review, I guess, is, you know, the purpose of it. And the alignment of the bezel is the only thing that I've noticed. It's just off a hair. If you look at the different markers, you can see they don't line up absolutely perfectly. But I don't expect that to be a common problem with this watch. Again, this is a prototype or pre-production sample. This watch it's really good, and when we talk about the good and the bad, there's not really much bad, but I'll talk about the good first. For me, it's a good size, the style, the aesthetic, I like everything about it, the fit and finish, the small polished chamfered edges on the case with the very nice vertically grained brushing. It's excellent. The fit and finish is great. The style is good. I like the handset. I like the markers. While there are no applied markers on the dial, they are just you know, printed markers. The layout, the theming of it is good. Those pencil hands are nice looking, and you have that nice loom tipped arrowhead second hand. You know, it's all executed very well. Another thing to like, and I've already kind of mentioned it, the loom. Excellent, excellent loom. Very, very good. As far as things that maybe I don't like, there's really only one thing that kind of bothers me about this watch. I mean, it's when we mentioned the price earlier. $320. I think it's a good price. It's a good value. But the way that they're doing this watch is you pay $160 now to pre-order it, and then in July of 2018, you pay the remainder, and they'll ship it to you when production on this particular line of watches is complete. I'm not really a fan of pre-ordering things, or basically crowdfunding it, I guess, is what they're kind of doing, although I don't know if they're doing it through Kickstarter explicitly. I just saw it on their website, but, you know, that's the only negative for me about this watch, is I'm not a fan of their pre-order system, you know, and that's just me. I think a lot of guys out there are going to say, like, oh, I don't mind, you know, I like the watch, I've seen all the pictures, I've seen your review, it looks cool, I know I want one, I'll pre-order 160, and then in 3, 4, 5 months, whatever, it'll show up, and I'll pay the rest, and, you know, that's fine. For me, though, it's just something that I don't prefer. But otherwise, I actually really like this watch. I think it's quality. I think the price is good. It's just, yeah, you know, I guess maybe it's because I'm an impulse shopper a little bit. It's like if I see this and I'm like, oh, I want to buy it. I want it right now. Well, I can't have it right now, and then I have to pay for half of it and not have it for months and months. That would kind of annoy me. But yeah, bracelet, very nice. The finishing, excellent, just like the finishing on the case. A decent clasp, it's got a fold-over safety latch, no dual-button deployment. It is just a friction lock. The friction, it's a little snug, but it's not bad. We have plenty of micro adjustment on the clasp there. You can see 4 holes. Yeah, it's great. No complaints with the bracelet at all. Like we had mentioned, solid end links. Overall, very, very good execution as far as the fit, finish, quality, style, presentation, aesthetics, everything. I think that's really well done. So yeah, that's the second watch in my trio of micro brand or, you know, small, more unknown brand watches that I wanted to show you guys. We will jump over to the Ocean Crawler next. Alright guys, finally we have the Ocean Crawler Champion Diver to take a look at. This is the Blade Wakatobi Edition. There are 3 limited to 75-piece editions of this Champion Diver watch that have different dial colors that all reflect the dive sites that they're named after. Now, I am not familiar with the Blade Wakatobi dive site, so I can't tell you anything about that. But yeah, I can tell you that there are these 3 limited edition pieces that try to capture, I guess, like the color of the water in the dial coloration that you would find at these different dive sites. So again, what we're looking at here is the Blade Wakatobi Edition, and this is, of course, in order of price escalation, the most expensive of the 3 watches that we are taking a look at today. It comes in at a price point of $949. Now, of course, because it's so limited to just 75 pieces, as you can imagine, these aren't even available anymore. If you go to the Ocean Crawler website, this particular edition is sold out. I believe it's the Barracuda something edition. I believe there are still some of those available at the same price point. So go ahead over to the Ocean Crawler website and take a look at what they have and what new models are going to be coming out, particularly in the next couple of weeks due to the Bezel World stuff that's happening. I think they will have some new watches on the horizon as well. So yeah, go check out the Ocean Crawler website. Now, specifics about this watch, aside from the information about its limited edition status, we'll talk about the dimensions on this watch. It is a little bit large for my tastes, but not overwhelmingly so for probably the average guy or the average user. Case diameter comes in at 44 millimeters with 22 millimeter lugs. I get a thickness measurement of about 15 millimeters with a lug-to-lug width from either extremity of the case or the watch's wingspan of 52 millimeters. So overall, it's, yeah, a little bit on the large size, in particular in thickness here, as you can see. It's not a thin watch, but I think for a lot of guys it's going to be okay. 44 millimeters for a dive watch isn't outrageous. This watch has a weight of about 120 grams or 4.2 ounces on my little kitchen scale. So, you know, not super heavy either. In particular compared to that Neymar watch that we took a look at a little while ago. That was a really heavy watch. The highlights of this watch, as far as, you know, features and specifications go, we do have a domed sapphire crystal with AR coating, and I'll see if I can give you a good look at it. You can see the doming there as I sort of rotate the watch. Very nicely done, very legible. Of course, I got some dust there on the crystal. I'll try to wipe that off for you so we can not be distracted by that. But yeah, it's a very, very nice crystal, very legible, very clean. The AR coating works wonderfully. Of course, you're going to get glare on my super, super bright studio lights, but even with that heavy, heavy glare, you can see the blue sheen of that AR coating, and the dial's still pretty readable, honestly. But in normal lighting conditions, it's awesome. It's perfect. We do have a 120 click unidirectional bezel, and it works okay. I'll talk about this more in a few minutes, but yeah, there's that 120 click unidirectional bezel, and it does have a luminous pip at the 0 marker up there at the top now. We have a screw down crown, of course, as you would expect, and a screw down case back. The case back is nicely engraved with the ocean crawler branding, this little I forget the name of that fossil. I meant to look it up. That's a thing. I forget what they call that. But that little fossil logo engraved in there. And then some other basic information there on the case back. But a nice screw down case back, as you can see. Because of the, of course, screw down crown and case back, we do get 300 meters of water resist. Now, interesting about this watch, as you can see, it comes on this very nice, high quality leather strap. The buckle is signed Ocean Crawler. The leather is great. It's a little bit thick. I like thinner straps personally. You can see that this is padded there in between the layers of leather. But it is great. High quality. Very, very nice leather. Little holes there are squared holes instead of circular holes, but works very well with the tongue on the buckle. Underside is lined with a black lining leather. It's very soft. It's a great strap. Just a little bit thick in my opinion. But the interesting thing about this is it comes on a leather strap, and then as you can probably imagine, as you saw earlier, I had this orange rubber strap with it. And so you have the option of, you know, dressing it up on nice leather, or if you're getting it wet, you can throw it on this rubber. The rubber is really nice. You can see there's a little bit of an embossing, engraving, I don't know what I would call this, on the underside here. It's very, very flexible, very supple. It's got a nice deployant clasp, dual button, opens up, you know, pretty typical deployant clasp, 2 keepers, and then on the other end here, standard, you know, rubber. Got the Ocean Crawler logo there. Overall, it's a really nice rubber strap. So you're getting 2 strap options with your watch is my point, which is a nice addition, particularly at this price point. I mean, it is a little bit high at $949, but you know that they're throwing in some extras there. The case that it comes in, the package, it's very nice. I'm not going to bring that over into camera because it's kind of big. It's going to be hard to fit into frame. But suffice to say, the presentation, the case, the box, everything that it comes with is nicely done. So, you know, I can appreciate that as well. Probably the most interesting thing about this watch for me, because I'm kind of a movement junkie when it comes to mechanical and automatic watches. I really appreciate accurate watches. I really appreciate technically advanced watches, is the movement in this watch. Now, it's just a standard Seiko 4R36 movement at its base. They call it the Caliber OC729, but it is a highly modified 4R36 Seiko movement. There's a number of things that they do to this movement. I'm not going to get too technical on it, but it is extremely shock resistant, and it goes through a series of something like 10 very high pressure testing shock tests to ensure that it's not going to get banged out of time by taking, you know, a blow or a shock or anything. That really impresses me. Number 2 that's really cool about this is that it is a highly regulated movement. And now when you get a Seiko movement from Seiko directly, like in any of their watches, they're more affordable watches that would use this 4R36 movement. It's really not regulated at all. I mean, it's put in the watch, it's probably regulated to one position, and then that's about it. I don't even know the steps that Seiko takes, but what Ocean Crawler is doing is they are regulating it to 3 positions to be within plus or minus 5 seconds per day. And they guarantee that level of accuracy for, I believe their website states 5 years. That's fantastic. That really, really impresses me. So you got this awesome shock resistance. You've got this great regulation, and it's guaranteed regulation for up to 5 years. In the process of modifying this movement to achieve these technical goals, They've also increased the power reserve from the standard 41 hours to 44 hours, which is really cool. So yeah, that's probably the thing for me that I really find impressive. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, you know, who cares about the movement? I know tons of you guys don't really care about the movement and the timekeeping. What you're going to be impressed with is this dial. The dial it's beautiful. It's this gradient from kind of a lighter blue up at the top to a darker blue down at the bottom, sort of reminiscent of that James Cameron Rolex. The word is escaping me now. Is it the Deep Sea Dweller? I forget now. But the James Cameron edition has that gradient dial. It's not the exact same thing, but it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. It is a beautiful dial. It's all printed. There's no indices. You know, it's just 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 with the markers, the chapter ring. This outer flange area chapter ring with your 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on. You know, it's all really well done. The printing, Ocean Crawler logo, that blade, Wakatobi kind of cursive orange text, which matches up with the minute hand and second hand for that matter. It's all really well done. And, you know, the rest of the printing, get out there at the very bottom underneath the 6 is kind of interesting. Nice little touch there for your, I don't know, more extreme sports guys, I guess. But that's what I think a lot of people are going to like about this watch, is the dial. It's beautiful. It is, for sure. The finishing of the case, you know, all of that stuff, yeah, it's done great. It really is. Everything on this watch is executed really, really well. And, you know, that's kind of what I want to talk about now. The things that I like and the things that I don't like. The good and the bad. Well, the good, it is extremely high quality. It's got excellent fit and finish. Comes with those extra straps. That highly regulated movement that goes through all the shock resist testing. I love that. Beautiful dial. The loom is good. Not outstanding, but it is good. I think their website said what type of loom it used, but I didn't write it down, so forgive me. But I'll roll in some loom video so you can see the loom in action. It's decent. It's not outstanding, but it's not bad either. Yeah, everything going on there, though. All that stuff. There's a lot of good going on. What is the bad? Well, 2 things for me really shine as bad. Number 1, the size, and this is subjective. For me, the size is bad. It's a little too big. 44 millimeters, 22 millimeter lugs, 52 millimeters lug to lug with that 15 millimeter thickness. The whole package is too big for me, but that's completely subjective. That might not apply to the average user, and it probably won't. The only real bad thing that I can say definitively that I don't like is the bezel. It's this unidirectional bezel with no graduations or markings at all. It does not feel as high quality as everything else about the watch. And don't get me wrong, everything about this watch feels high quality with the exception of the bezel. And I like the watch so much, I hate to even say something negative about it like this, but I gotta tell the truth, it feels cheap. That's the only way that I can describe it. I wish that the guys over at Ocean Crawler put a standard dive bezel on this watch with normal graduations. You have these little tiny, it's almost like a Breitling rider tab, very, very understated at the 15, 30, and 45 marks. And then, of course, the luminous pip up at the 12th position here. So, you know, if we wanted to use this for real, let's just put our pip down at 25. We have no idea, like, easily, where's 5 minutes, where's 10 minutes? I mean, you can you got to do a little bit of rough math, right? You can go 25, 30, 35, 40. You see those markings on that inner chapter ring there, but it would be nice if we just had on the bezel, you know, hash, 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 hash 5, hash, 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 hash 10, 15, and so on. We could at least see here that the 15 mark over here on this little kind of pseudo rider tab thing, I guess, aside from the fact that there's no real graduations, it just doesn't feel high quality like the rest of the watch. Overall, I really did. Obviously, as you can tell, I dislike this bezel. I'm sorry to have to say it, but at a watch at this price point, I think that the bezel should be much, much nicer. But that's basically it. I mean, this is like almost a home run if it wasn't for the bezel and the size is subjective. Like, the size doesn't really matter. To me, the size is a problem. To you, the size might be perfect. But the bezel, for me, that's a no-go. That's a no-pass. But everything else about it that I've mentioned, it is great. I like it a lot. Maybe in a future version, since these are so limited, I mean, it's not like you could go buy this particular one brand new anymore anyway. But maybe in a future version, they'll clean that up, put something a little more traditional on there. I'm sure they were trying to be different, and at such a very limited production piece number, you know, it's 75 pieces, 225 total when you look at the 3 different versions. You know, I guess like they can afford to do stuff that's out there and it will still appeal to a crowd of potential customers enough to, you know, get those pieces sold. But I hope they do change that in the future. So there you have it, guys. There's the Ocean Crawler Champion Diver. Again, this is the Blade Wakatobi edition. Overall, you know, I want to give it 2 thumbs up, but that one thing there, the bezel, is like a 1.5 thumbs up, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed checking out this watch, and I'll be right back with my final thoughts. So there you have it, guys. 3 micro brand dive watches that maybe you haven't been tuned into yet or familiar with, something that you might want to consider. Hopefully you just enjoyed checking them out. I always like to learn about things that I'm not familiar with. So even if it's something that, you know, doesn't blow your skirt up or whatever, you know, you like spent a few minutes checking out something that maybe you weren't familiar with. And in my book, that's a plus, right? I appreciate you guys, as always, spending the time to watch my videos, and you know, as always, I do ask that if you want to support the channel, please go down into the description of this video or the About section on my YouTube page. There's a list of ways that you guys can help me. Number 1, following me on all of my social media accounts is a great help. Number 2, if you want to become a Patreon supporter, I would greatly appreciate the support. And if you want to support me financially without actually giving me any money, just click on my Amazon link and shop on Amazon, buying anything that you might normally buy or something that I've reviewed, and I get a small commission on every single order that goes through my affiliate link. That helps me out a great deal as well, and it costs you nothing if you were going to buy something on Amazon anyway. As always, thanks again for tuning in. I will be back probably early next week with another review video. Until then, thanks a lot, and we will see you then. Bye.